Hello and welcome. Today we will be conducting an experiment using two methods. One's going to be growing your onions in an egg carton, like these, and another one of my experiments, or one of my methods, is growing your onions in wet moss. Now we need to first determine which onions work best for this. Now these are going to be green onions. We're going to be growing green onions from these onions, and we want to get the best results. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your onion, you're going to cut it in half, and you're going to try to take a look at how many growing points it has. There could be a high amount, which is around 5 or 6, which is ideal and the one that you want to achieve. Then there's the moderate amount, which is about 3 that I have here. And then there's one, the lowest, which is just 1 growing point throughout the entire onion. Since we don't have onions that have 5 or 6, we're going to be using the one with 3. So we're going to start by putting our onions into the egg carton. As you can see here, we do have an onion that's a bit too big. So what we're going to do is we're going to isolate this one. We're going to put it on its own in order for it to be able to grow properly and not be next to or not fit into it properly. So we're just going to put it on its own in a different row. We're going to begin by cutting our onions by the shoulder, so kind of like this. We want to get rid of the rough skin, or the rough layer, so that they can grow properly. We're going to put them into our egg carton. What I do suggest is you wet your onions beforehand. You want to kind of let them sit in water for a little bit. This will speed up the growing process. It's just a little trick that I have. So once you're done placing your onions, make sure you give them enough space between one another. You're just going to fill it up with water. And you're just going to place it on a steady spot and let it grow. So now we're going to begin with our method. All you're going to need is a plate or a dish like so, and some mesh. You can use any floral flower mesh, or you can use the onion bag that comes with the onions. With the mesh, it can easily poke through the material, so don't worry about your onions not growing. They will grow through this material. As you can see here, it's really easy to just kind of rip apart. So now what you're going to do is you're going to cut your mesh in the shape of your plate. And you're going to cut this twice. You're going to cut 2 of these. So now what you're going to need is wet moss. So just put your mesh on the bottom of your plate and place your wet moss. The cool thing about moss is that it has antibacterial properties, and it can also hold water 15 times more than its own weight. So this means it is much more convenient than using soil. You will have more moisture for your onions, and it's much less dirty, it's more controlled. And just a reminder, today is May 22nd. So what you're going to do is you're going to place your moss, and then you're going to cut your onions, get rid of that rough layer at the top, and place them into your moss. Moss also acts as a divider between these onions, much like the egg carton. So that's what it also does, and that's how it helps with the onion's growth. Now you're just going to take your second piece of mesh, and you're going to put it over top and staple them together. You're kind of creating like a little nest or a cage for your onions here. So the mesh will protect your onions from being dug up by any animals, and it can also transport it from one dish to another if you'd like. It's really easy to pick up, simple. So just make sure to water it periodically. Of course, moss does have a very high level of moisture. If you get it wet, it can hold water. So just make sure you water periodically. We will be back with some results, and we will show you in a few days how this works out. We were doing a video on onions. We were planting our onions, and we were going to show you the two different methods that we have here, the one in the egg carton and the one with the moss covered by this net here. It is currently July 1st, and it's been about a little bit over a month, about a month and a half. And as you can see here, the one with the egg carton got really gross. It got all moldy and rotten. The egg carton has completely degraded, as you can see here. And some of the onions have completely died and are no longer, you can no longer use them. They completely rot. Some of them have developed root systems, but they're not good. They're not that developed. Some of them have begun sprouting, as you can see here. But overall, the result of using this method was not good. We did this for you so that you can see how many onions this in turn actually destroys rather than how many it actually grows and sprouts. You can see here it's all gross and rotten. So we're saving you the time. I would not suggest using this method. It does not work as effectively as the method that I used here with the moss. See here we have a bunch of rotten, moldy onions. They also have gotten really smelly and stinky. Mind you that we did keep both of these methods, both little containers here, in the same conditions. We water them regularly as they do need moisture. But now I'm going to show you my method, the one with the moss and everything. So what I did here was I took some moss, wet moss, and I placed some onions into here, and I cut holes so that they could sprout. As you can see here, I'm going to open it up and we're going to take a look at the onions. So we can already see here that the sprouts have already grown very well. We already have a very good plant going here. I'm going to take some of them out and I'm going to show you the root system so you can take a look. So as you can see here, we already have a very, very well developed root system. The moss has given the onions enough moisture. And onions don't necessarily need soil in order to grow. They just need moisture and sunlight, so that's what they received. And look at the results here. Very well developed root systems, very good moss and moisture. No rotting, nothing like that, no smell. Everything seems very good and very healthy. So of course, some of these onions did not fully develop as quickly as the others, and this can be due to the fungicides that are found on these onions or within the onions. And these act as antagonist hormones, which can slow down the process. But overall, this method worked much better than the other method, and I do suggest you try this method. So we showed you the results of our two different methods, and it's clear which one works better. So don't waste your time and be smart with your methods, as you can see here. So thank you so much for watching. Leave any comments or questions you have below, and do not forget to subscribe.